Welcome to the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay. This is your positive path for spiritual living.
All right, so with that, how about I do this? Here's a good transition. There was a girl, right? So there was a girl who one year, right, wrote a very nice letter to Santa Claus, and there was just one thing on her Christmas list. She wrote, Santa Claus, the only thing I want this Christmas is a baby brother. Oh, right? And so the baby brother came, actually, that year. And so the next year, she's getting ready for her Christmas list again, and she starts writing. And the mom notices that she's beginning to write, and it's like, oh, looking over, she's like, I just have one thing that I have for you this year again, Santa Claus. The mom's like really surprised. We're like, oh, wow, beautiful. And then the girl goes, just one question for you, Santa. What's your return policy? Okay. I don't know how good of a segue that is for my talk, but it was funny. It did well at the first service, so we're going to use it again. All right. Well, we are talking about faith. Thank you for having the faith in my jokes, right? And maybe it's not just faith. Maybe you're like an optimist at heart, right? And so, as we are speaking about faith this Sunday, it's really an invitation for us to recognize how we may be using our faith, the way in which we may be in hope, or maybe in some areas of our life in despair. I know despair is such a big word and can feel very heavy. So as I was thinking about it, it's like, well, there could be some individuals that are feeling in despair, and there may be some of us who in one little area or another are maybe feeling a little despair or disconnected, right? And our opportunity is to look at the way in which we're looking at things. Are we focusing on how things could go wrong? Or are we bringing our focus and attention to the way in which things can work out for us, right? Are we optimists, maybe in one or many areas of our lives, or are we a little pessimistic? One person who is an optimist and who chooses hope and who chooses faith is this spiritual leader named Eddie Weinstein. And she says this, I'm not just an optimist, I am an optimistic who sees the world through the eyes of possibility. And I would even go to say, especially since she uses optimistic, for me, mysticism is not only looking at life through the eyes of possibility, but looking at life through the awareness that God is always present. Being able to either see God's presence in every situation, in every relationship, or at least being able to take a moment, take a pause, and ask, can I see God in this? How is God going to show up in this? How can I bring that which is holy and sacred to this experience? And I really believe that this time that we have gathered together with the Christmas holiday at hand and, all the preparation that is going on, that many of us, through Christmas, can see some of the possibilities, right? We can see the possibilities of togetherness. We can see more possibilities of love being expressed and shared. We can see more of peace and goodwill towards each other. I know that sometimes some people aren't able to see it, and there may be areas in our lives where we may not be able to see it. But in general, there is this impulse that I believe really rises up within us and is around us to be able to see what is possible in our life and in the life of humanity. And when we celebrate the birth of Jesus, our master way shower, what I believe we are celebrating is that which he came to model for us. That which he gave as a gift, the first Christmas gift, right, that we've ever received, which is that possibility of living into our Christ consciousness, of recognizing that we ourselves have that Christ nature within us, and that is the birth of possibility. That is the birth of how we want to experience life. That is the birth, really, of heaven on earth. And I know that there may be some things that keep us from fully birthing that love, peace, and joy, and maybe gets in the way sometimes of living in a more Christ-centered experience or consciousness. And so how can we step into a greater sense of hope and faith in our lives? Maybe some of us have some rocky relationships and things that need to be looked at there. Maybe some of us feel a little bit of dread in certain areas of our life. Maybe not fully work, but some areas of work or at home. Maybe there is a clinging. How many of us sometimes feel like we're just clinging to this idea that we are victims, that somebody did something to us, and through that, how many of us are maybe blocking ourselves from fully experiencing the abundance, the wholeness, and the healing that we know God to be. If we're seeking to experience a greater sense of God's abundance and good, to be able to recognize that maybe we haven't been fully looking for it. And there's a way of us shifting the way in which we are experiencing life in general. And so how can we birth this new way of being, a new way of seeking and experiencing God moment by moment? And, Christmas isn't about the one night. We know this in Unity. It's not about that one night. I was thinking this between services. I'm Latino, so I see Christmas, right? More Christ. And it's an opportunity of really stepping more into our own Christ. And for those of you who didn't realize it and, needed a little bilingual help, we'll get somebody to help you with that later after the services. But how can we experience more of our own Christ nature during this holiday? And know that whatever has plagued us, whatever has kept us from playing small, that we're able to let go of those limitations. We're able to really step into a greater vision for our life and for the life of humanity. And we are able to do it through the trust and the faith and the hope that arises from recognizing Christ, our Christ nature. Who we are is the Christ in expression. And so can we have faith and through that recognize a greater sense of hope in our lives by following and knowing fully, like really getting it, what is said in Colossians chapter 1, verse 27, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Christ in you, the hope of glory. That, I believe, is our superpower. To know and recognize that Christ is already within us. And as I invite you to speak this as an affirmation, I realize that there's a difference between speaking something. There's a difference between affirming something. And then we get to the place of claiming something. So wherever you're at in the journey, I really invite you to take a breath with me. Don't just say it. Don't even just affirm it. Claim it in this moment and speak with me our affirmation. Christ in me, the hope of glory. One more time, go even deeper and just get a sense of it in a greater way together. Christ in me, the hope of glory. And maybe you already felt the shift. And maybe it's an opportunity for you to just hold on to the hope that you will feel that shift. Wherever you're at with it, this is the real, for me, opportunity of the Christmas holiday. And so see, through this, we're able to see, I believe, more clearly, to be able to know that faith is always present. And that's the thing, right? Like when we talk about getting more faith, we have all the faith we need. The question is, where are we placing the faith? Those that are pessimistic, you're placing, or those people are placing faith in how things could go wrong and how things will not work out. And our opportunity is to just recognize, can we shift our attention and our focus to how things will be working out for our greater good? That maybe we don't even know the answers right here and right now, but we can trust that we will be guided, that we will trust that we will be inspired, and we will be moving into a greater acceptance of the bounty and abundance and wholeness that God is within our lives and within the life of humanity. And so where are we placing that faith? As Matthew chapter 9, verse 29 says, according to your faith, be it done to you. You know what the answer for me is that in that moment? Christ in me, the hope of glory. Christ in me, the hope of glory. A couple of years ago, in 2020, CBS News reported that, get this, $3 billion in gift cards are not redeemed every year. $3 billion. I know some of you are starting to open up your purses and look for those gift cards, but $3 billion of money is not redeemed and claimed. And yes, we're like, oh, shocked by it. And can we take a moment and recognize that there is so much power within us through the Christ presence that we don't fully claim and we don't fully redeem? And so what can we do with that? How can we start claiming it? How can we start redeeming something that is already ours? It's already within us. It was already gifted to us through the very activity of God that manifested and created in its image us. How can we claim it more fully? And so do we let the world of circumstances keep us from claiming our good? Whatever challenges we may be navigating, big or small, can we in those moments take a pause? You know, I love to do this. The more and more I remember and tell myself to do this, take a pause, breathe, and affirm. Affirm it with me. Take a pause, breathe, and claim it with me. Christ in me, the hope of glory. See, the thing is that Christ nature that we are is how God is already centered in us. God is already centered in us. The question is, will we have our consciousness centered in God? Will we have our consciousness, our hope, and our faith focused and intentional on that which we already are, that which is already within us? And so, yeah, maybe our thoughts sometimes go to the materiality. Sometimes our thoughts are centered on the challenges and difficulties. Sometimes they're focused on the news of the day. And if you look at the news of the day, you know, sometimes it just feels like we're going to hell in a handbasket, right? And in those moments, because the moment that we're focused on the challenges or the trouble or the difficulties, rather than moving into focusing on the solutions, focusing and having faith on what can be birthed through those challenging and difficult experiences. And so it's a way of just reimagining how we can use the faith that is already within us and the power of attention and our focus to that which can be possible. And we know that through the Christ that is within us, the hope of glory, for me, glory is living into what is fully possible in the moment, fully moving into love, fully moving into power, peace, comfort, togetherness, oneness. And so how can we do it? To be able to center ourselves so much on God and the God of our being that we can feel as we're moving through whatever it is, that the whole universe believes in us, that everything is working to support us into our next phase of spiritual evolution and maturity and understanding. And listen, if sometimes you don't think that the whole universe is behind you and believes in you, well, look around you. Then maybe think about Unity on the Bay believes in you and thinks that you can do it. And even if that sometimes is not possible, then just, for what it's worth, know that I believe in you and what's possible through and as you in the world. Our need is to accept it, though, to let it happen, to let ourselves be directed out of the consciousness that is faith and believing kind of attitude. May Rowland said, she headed Silent Unity for many decades, when faith is rightfully placed, that is, when it is fixed upon that which is true and uplifting, it makes us strong, masterful, and courageous. How many of you would love to experience a greater sense of your own strength and power in any situation? How many of you would love to feel yourself masterful at being centered in God, masterful in how you claim your good and express your good, not only for your sake, but for the sake of humanity. Yes? Amen? How many of us want to be courageous, more courageous? I get it. It takes courage to go out in the world sometimes and to face some of the challenges and difficulties that may be rising up and say, yes, I can understand that that is happening, and that won't keep me from knowing that something is being birthed, that there is good at hand, that there is something, whether I know what it is or not, that at the end of the day I can look back and say, wow, there was God's grace in my life and in the world. Is that the kind of experience that we want to have during this Christmas holiday? Yes? Well, I have a couple of things that I want to share with you that helped me, especially one year that I'll talk about shortly, to really experience this kind of power and this kind of faith and this kind of hope. And it's just 4 steps. 1, just to remind ourselves of the power of faith, to take those breaths and just remind ourselves. Through that, then, stepping into keeping hope alive, regardless of the situation, regardless of whether you are seeing faith already showing up in the experience, to then release attachment, to how that faith will show up. And then just do what we're guided to do and let it all unfold. Now, yes, remind yourself about the power of faith. Easier said than done sometimes. I get it. But we're so powerful that I trust that you can look around the room and know somebody that when you forget, you can reach out to so that they can remind you of the power of faith and the power of God in your life. Again, Christ in you is your hope of glory. Let's affirm it again. Christ in me, the hope of glory. And then, just in case we forget, turn to somebody next to you and say, Christ in you, the hope of glory. And so then we move into keeping hope alive. Wait, too many people are having too much fun with that. But think about that, right? Like, see how grace-filled that feels. To not only be able to speak that and remind somebody of that truth, but then have it reflected back at us. And that is the power that is within here, but also within here. And so then how do we keep hope alive? To be quite honest with you, the only thing that I can think of is continue the sayings, the affirmations, and continue the claiming. So yes, you claim your faith and then things come up and things come up. What is going to be your response? Sometimes maybe you don't know what the full response is going to be, but you know enough to just once again take a breath and affirm. Once again, envision what you want to experience and to do it continually over and over and over again, as many times as it needs to for you to be centered in faith. Teilhard de Chardin said, I begin to think that most of our weaknesses are due to the fact that our belief is too narrow and that we don't believe through to the end. To stop believing a second too soon or to not believe enough is sufficient to ruin the whole structure of what we are building. So much time and effort and power goes into manifesting our dreams and vision. And sometimes when we're just at the cusp of seeing it manifested, sometimes that's where, right, like that little glass ceiling. So you got to push through it. And some of us sometimes don't. We don't think we're strong enough. We don't think that there's enough courage within us. We don't think that there is enough faith and hope within us. And to continue to just practice, affirm, and claim to move further into hope. And then release attachment. So, see, there's a thing about faith that I have gone clear about, which is that I can cling to my faith and the trust without having to cling at how that faith and that trust is going to manifest itself. Because the greatest faith that I can have, for me, is to simply know that my highest good shall be expressed, that my highest good shall be manifested, and that whatever it is that I may create or manifest or just move through, that God will be there. Can we cling on to faith and let go of the details? I love visioning boards and all that stuff. I love it. And It's not about the details. It's about the faith that you have in what you're doing. Anna Lamott says, do not at all understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, but doesn't leave us where it found it. And we've all experienced grace. We've all experienced that even when we didn't try or hold on to it, that good came out of something that we thought was not so good, or we couldn't see it at first. So the next one is just follow your guidance, right? When you release that attachment, there's more space for God's inner voice to speak to you as to what it is that is for us to do. I had an experience of these 4 steps quite a few years ago. Some of you were around during that time, and it's depicted in The Sweetest Christmas. It's a booklet by the Unity Movement, and they asked me to write an article for it. And so if you don't have it, and you're watching from home, there's a link so that you can download it. If you're in the room, you can actually get some on the way out. But I want to read this story to you, because I think it's the one that I can really not only lean on for an understanding of the faith that is within me, but the faith that is within this community. So it says, for the past 10 years, our Christmases have been extra sweet as we celebrated them with our miracle baby, Lucas. See, it happened at the first service. It was at the end of the story that I started getting. I had always dreamed of being a father, and when Tom and I decided to begin the process of adoption, I was excited, overjoyed, and in all honesty, a bit anxious. I just knew we would celebrate our first Christmas as a family of 3 that year in 2012. We began the adoption process. At first, it was easier than we thought it would be. We told everyone about our plans and our vision for Christmas that year. They joined us in celebrating the vision and held us in prayer. Summer rolled around, and then in the fall, things started to slow down. Soon enough, Christmas was just around the corner. Instead of feeling excitement, disappointment started to seep in. We were told that it would take months before we'd be approved to adopt. I shared with Tom and that I felt we needed to let those holding us in prayer know that it just wasn't going to happen before Christmas. When I shared the news with our Unity family, they kept reminding me not to lose hope. Regardless of when it happened, they affirmed the joyful family memories would take place before we knew it. One congregant in particular, some of you know her, Mildred Roca, looked me directly in the eyes and said, in a way that only Mildred Roca can say, by the way, "You will have your child by Christmas. Do not lose hope and have faith." Although I began to release my attachment to the timing, a seed of hope was within me, and I allowed it to remain in my heart. On Thursday, December 13th of that year, the adoption agency called. "Would you be available to join us tomorrow at the hospital and meet a 4-day-old baby boy who needs a forever home?" We went to meet our baby boy, and soon as we saw him, we knew we'd name him Lucas Gabriel, which means bringer of light, and God is my strength. Here we were less than 2 weeks before Christmas. It truly was about holding the vision, keeping hope alive, releasing attachment, and watching things unfold. I imagine Lucas's picture is now up there. Often not fully in the way that we planned, yet fully manifesting blessings and miracles in our lives. The true meaning of Christmas was expressed within our new forever family, to trust the presence of divine within, to honor the light of God in our lives, and to come together in family and community, leading on each other as we celebrate that which is always birthed in us, faith, hope, and love. That first Christmas with Lucas was the sweetest Christmas, and it set the foundation for each sweet Christmas after. What are you birthing this sweet Christmas? How are you creating a forever home for faith, hope, and love? You have the power within you, through Christ in us, the hope of our own glory, to make this the sweetest Christmas that we've ever had, and let it be the foundation of all Christmases after that also. Merry Christmas and namaste.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay, a spiritual community located in Miami, Florida. Unity on the Bay is supported by the generosity of its community. If you'd like to make a donation or learn more about Unity on the Bay, please visit unityonthebay.org. You can also follow Unity on the Bay on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for even more positive spiritual inspiration. Until next time, thanks for listening and many blessings. Namaste.